Welcome to our Myanmar podcast Corner Update. This episode covers the week from December 28th to January 3rd, a period that saw the first phase of national elections since the military takeover in 2021, deepening conflict in several regions, and mounting humanitarian pressures across the country. I'm July.
And I'm Mo. We'll navigate through developments on the ground, unpacking what the election means in the context of ongoing civil war, how various armed and political actors are positioning themselves, and the real costs for civilians trying to live their daily lives amidst violence, political repression, and economic strain.
On December 28, 2025, the first phase of Myanmar's national elections took place. These are the first parliamentary polls since the military coup in early 2021, and they are structured in 3 phases, with the next rounds scheduled for January 11th and January 25th, 2026. The election is happening under the control of the military-appointed Union Election Commission.
Results from this first phase showed the military-backed Union Solidarity and Development Party, USDP, leading by a wide margin in constituencies where voting took place. Partial results indicated USDP wins in the vast majority of contested seats and dominance among parties operating under the current political framework.
This result was widely expected. Many opposition leaders remain detained or politically sidelined, including figures tied to the previously dominant National League for Democracy, which has been dissolved and barred from participation. The electoral framework favors parties aligned with or tolerated by the military regime, and many townships under resistance control did not participate due to insecurity.
Official turnout figures reported roughly 52% participation in areas where polls were held, but given the exclusion of vast regions and the absence of truly competitive opposition, these numbers reflect not robust civic engagement, but constrained and managed participation under conditions of conflict and fear.
Campaigning ahead of the vote was noticeably muted compared with past elections. In many urban and rural areas that did hold voting, public rallies and visible political engagement were scarce, with campaign activity largely limited to posters or message boards. There was little of the vibrant political mobilization seen in prior election cycles.
In addition, the political environment around the election has been shaped by laws that make criticism or interference with the process a criminal offense, increasing risks for activists and ordinary citizens alike. According to independent reporting, authorities have pursued legal cases against people suspected of opposing the election or publicly criticizing it, creating a climate of repression.
While the election was taking place in government-held zones, Myanmar continues to experience widespread armed conflict. Resistance forces, including the People's Defense Forces and allied ethnic armed organizations, have intensified operations in several regions. Myanmar Now reported offensives targeting junta positions in Magway Region's Yedishe Township during the week, inflicting casualties on the military forces.
Meanwhile, clashes and security incidents have occurred in other parts of the country as well. In Sagaing region, broad resistance networks and local defense groups remain active in areas where central authority is weak or contested.
The backdrop of these ongoing conflicts is decades of warfare between the central authorities and ethnic armed organizations. In western Rakhine State, the Arakan Army controls large territory and exerts administrative influence, reflecting broader territorial fragmentation. These dynamics complicate any effort by the central government, whether military or civilian, to unify governance or security across all regions.
Combat incidents and air operations against contested zones continue to strain civilian safety. Long-standing battles over strategic districts like Kyaukphu illustrate how military offensives and resistance advances displace thousands of civilians, disrupt agriculture, and create dangerous environments for non-combatants and essential services.
Civilian casualties have also resulted from large-scale military actions. For example, an airstrike at a hospital in Rauk-U earlier in December killed dozens of patients, staff and caregivers, highlighting the severe humanitarian toll of military operations amid broader electoral messaging.
Conflict and political instability are only one piece of the picture. The toll on civilian life across the country is profound. Displacement from homes and fields continues to grow as battles and insecurity expand. Refugee communities along Myanmar's borders, in camps such as those in Thailand's Tak province, continue to grapple with limited aid and uncertain futures. Humanitarian assistance that reach these camps has been reduced or cut off in some cases, leaving refugees with few options.
Inside Myanmar, farmers face collapsing incomes and mounting debt, compounded by volatile markets and limited access to seeds, fertilizers, or stable trade routes. Rural areas, especially central dry zones and conflict-affected regions, struggle with agricultural disruptions that threaten food security and livelihoods.
Economic stresses are visible in urban areas too, with rising costs of living, intermittent access to electricity and fuel, and shrinking job opportunities. Factory activity has decreased, and many businesses are hanging on despite power shortages and reduced commerce. These conditions push more families into precarious work or informal economies.
Healthcare access remains fragile. Years of conflict have exacerbated shortfalls in medical infrastructure, staffing, and supply chains. Attacks on healthcare facilities in previous months, including the December hospital strike, have damaged services that were already stretched thin. Patients and health workers alike face risks amid ongoing instability.
Mental health concerns are also growing. The stresses of war, displacement, loss of family members, and economic hardship affect all age groups, straining community resilience and coping mechanisms. Support services are sparse, and many survivors of violence continue without access to basic psychosocial care.
The conduct of elections and the wider political situation have attracted varied international attention. Neighbouring countries, such as China, have expressed cautious support for stabilisation through political avenues, including the ongoing polls, while also emphasising regional security and economic continuity.
In contrast, many Western governments and international organizations have described the election as lacking legitimacy, citing the exclusion of major political parties, restrictions on civic freedom, and ongoing hostilities that make meaningful participation impossible.
This divergence in international responses adds complexity to Myanmar's diplomatic environment. ASEAN's position remains nuanced. While some member states call for peaceful transitions and respect for human rights, the grouping has yet to coalesce around a unified stance that would decisively shift the trajectory of Myanmar's political crisis. Engagement tends to focus on negotiation and managing regional stability rather than direct intervention.
Human rights watchdogs and media freedom advocates continue to highlight assaults on independent press and civil liberties. Authorities' attempts to criminalize dissent and control narratives around the election have drawn particular scrutiny, especially given reports of detentions connected to expressing opposition to the vote.
As Phase 2 and Phase 3 of the elections approach in January, uncertainty looms over how much broader participation will be achievable. Civil conflict, political exclusion, and insecurity may continue to limit voter access and distort perceptions of representation.
Beyond the elections, the fragmentation of political authority across Myanmar's regions has implications for governance, economic recovery, and social cohesion. If current divisions deepen, unifying national structures may prove increasingly difficult.
For many citizens, whether in urban centres or rural villages, the immediate future hinges on access to basic services, protection from violence, and opportunities to rebuild livelihoods. Political developments matter, but so do the everyday realities of safety, food, and work.
This week's developments in Myanmar reflect the country at a crossroads. An election process unfolding amid war, strained humanitarian conditions, and sharply contrasting international responses.
As the calendar turns to 2026, these forces will continue to shape Myanmar's path, testing the resilience of its people and the coherence of its political institutions. That wraps up Myanmar Weekly Focus for this first week of 2026. If you found today's episode valuable, please subscribe and follow us for more in-depth coverage.
Next week, we'll look at phases 2 and 3 of the election and evolving dynamics on the ground. Thank you for listening, and stay informed.